Continuing with our ongoing shiurim, our classes on Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. We are currently up to class, I don't know which number, in the Encyclopedia Talmudit, which we have been doing for a great while. This is the Talmudic Encyclopedia. Karach Hey, Volume 5, and the entry is Goy. And we are dealing with the concept of the non-Jew, known as the Goy. And as just mentioned, we've been doing this for quite a while, and there's a lot in this encyclopedia with regards to the Torah about the Goy. We are currently up to page Shin Lamed Zayin, which would be 337. And the heading over here within the section of Goy, the subheading, if you will, is Be'edus v'ne'emonus, when it comes to testifying as a witness and when it comes to being trustworthy. Now again, just to remind everyone, when we speak over here of the Goy, we're talking about, if we can generalize, which is what we're going to do now, your average human being who is a non-Jew. That's it. We don't know to what extent he believes in God. Did he take upon himself to keep the 7 laws? We're surely not talking about a ger toshav or either a formal ger toshav or a potential ger toshav. We're talking about an average human being. Basically, people are decent. And basically, people have certain flaws that until proven otherwise, we assume that they have these flaws. Let's take that approach. That basic people are basically decent, and most people basically have certain flaws to them. And in order to break that assumption, we need to have something out of the ordinary to be able to break that assumption. Otherwise, we will assume that people have certain flaws. That's what we're talking about. So now we're dealing with the concept of testifying and how and when and to what extent can the Jew trust the Goy. So we're in the second paragraph, and again, each column is a separate page. So when I say Shin Lamed Zayin 337, it's actually the column. Be'edus v'ne'emonus, with regards to testifying and being trusted. Ein edus l'goy. There's a statement made in the Talmud, and it's brought down in the Rambam and Maimonides and in the Shulchan Aruch and the Code of Jewish Law. And that is, to sum it up at the end, there is no testimony for a Goy. The non-Jew is not an accepted witness. At least as far as, well, we're going to see now, but at least as far as in a Jewish case, if there are, the litigants have a court case and they appear before the Jewish Beis Din, generally speaking, a non-Jew would not be able to serve as a witness. The sholosh shitois rishonim badavar, and there are 3 different approaches, 3 opinions amongst the Rishonim. The Rishonim are the early codifiers, which are post-Talmud, and the Rishonim would be those such as the Rif, the Rosh, the Rambam, Rashi, Ramban, just to mention a few. So those are called the Rishonim, which is pretty much taking us back anywhere between 700 to close to 1,000 years ago. So it's post-Talmud. And the Rishonim which are the ones that give out the final legal verdict based on the different opinions in the Talmud. So we find in the Rishonim, with regards to the fact that a goy cannot be a witness, 3 different approaches. And they are: Yesh Omrim, there are those that say, Shemin HaTeira, that biblically speaking, Hagoy kosher le'edus, the goy, the non-Jew, is fit for testimony. Biblically speaking, originally, by the law, the God-given Torah, a goy can be and is a kosher witness. And here's the proof. Shatera amra ba'edim, for when the Torah speaks about witnesses in the book of Devarim, I believe it's Parsha Shoftim, chapter 19, verse 17. Shatera amra ba'edim, the Torah states with regards to the witnesses, and we quote, V'amdu shnei ho'anoshim, and the 2 men shall stand. All right, so it calls these witnesses 2 men. V'agoy ishu, and the goy is certainly a man. Now, mind you, that women, including Jewish women, are not accepted as witnesses. And Jewish women cannot testify in a Jewish court basically in any case. But the verse here says men, it doesn't say Jewish men. So that means that based on the verse, biblically, the goy, who is an ish, a man, is a proper witness. V'loi matzinu b'shum makoim, and we haven't found anywhere remez, a hint, lifsoil oisam, to disqualify them, kikroivim, as relatives, which are disqualified, ushar psulim, or the rest of those that are disqualified to be witnesses. In other words, in the laws of witnesses, as far as I'm talking about in Jewish law, so which type of Jewish adult men are disqualified from being witnesses? So one is if they're related either to each other, the 2 witnesses, and then we, of course, get into what's called a relation, or if they're related to the individual that they're testifying for or against on his behalf, or whatever the case may be. Those people, as righteous as they may be, are disqualified as witnesses. And the theoretical, classical example given is even if Moshe and Aharon, Moses and Aaron, were to come to testify, we would not accept their testimony because they're 2 brothers. So you have the 2 greatest people ever, the man through whom God gave us the Torah, and his older brother, the high priest. The 2 of them were to come to a Jewish court to testify about something. We disqualify it. They're 2 brothers. So that's one type of a disqualification. And then there are others that are also disqualified, basically if they're considered quote-unquote sinners, so then they're no longer trusted. And there are other such things which would disqualify people. So we don't find that a non-Jewish man is disqualified, except milvad be'edus gitin v'kiddushin, except for when it comes to testifying with regards to the get, which would be the legal divorce document that the Jewish man gives his Jewish wife in order to dissolve their marriage. So that is called in Aramaic a get, as we discussed in a previous class. And that needs to be done with witnesses. And likewise, kiddushin, the marriage, the betrothal, which is the first stage of the legal Jewish marriage. V'shichrurei avadim, and likewise, the freeing of slaves, halamedim megitin, which are learned out from Gittin. So really there are 2 things that a non-Jew biblically cannot testify for a Jew, and that would be divorce and marriage, and because of divorce, we learn out that the same way, in a very similar vein, we learn out from the verses that a man can, if you will, release his wife from the marriage by giving her this document. In a very similar way, the owner can free and release his slave from being his property by giving him the document of release. So therefore, in those things, we disqualify the non-Jew, and the logic there is very simple. Because since the non-Jews have no connection b'teiras gitin v'kiddushin when it comes to the laws of Jewish divorce and marriage, therefore they cannot become witnesses. In order to be a witness about something, so the individual testifying, the witness, needs to be one that has some connection and association with that topic at hand, as he's about to explain. Mashein came, which is not the case, where they, not like marriage and divorce, al hadinim, when it comes to civil laws, shebnei Noach nitztavu bohem, that the descendants of Noach, all the non-Jews, are commanded. That is the seventh of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And that is dinim, that they have to set up a court system. And different opinions, as we've studied in a previous class, whether it means that they simply have to make sure to that people keep those other 6, and they should make up civil laws that make sense, and that can change from time to time or from place to place, depending on the time and the country that they live in. Or, one opinion even said that they should actually follow all of the mishpatim, all of the civil, rational laws of the Torah. Be that as it may, the non-Jewish world, the Bnei Noach, the Goyim, they do have a connection to law, to civil law. Therefore, they can testify in a case of dinim, of civil law. Which is not the case, though, when it comes to Jewish marriage and Jewish divorce or freeing the slaves. So biblically, a goy is disqualified to be a witness for a Jewish divorce or a Jewish marriage or the releasing of a slave. But other than that, they would be proper, acceptable witnesses, biblically speaking. Ella, it's just shemid rabbananu pasul edus, that rabbinically speaking, the guy is disqualified. So at a certain point, the sages, the rabbis, they came and stepped in, and they said, yes, biblically the guy is accepted as a witness in most cases. However, we are going to disqualify him. And actually, the chachamim, the rabbis, did, as they do in many, many subjects, they did disqualify not only the guy, but there are many cases where a Jew would biblically be a kosher witness, but rabbinically not. All right, depending on what he did wrong, certain sins that the rabbi said, even though biblically this does not disqualify him, but we are disqualifying him. So too, when it comes to the goy, they said across the board, all the goyim are disqualified to testify in any case. And the reason for that is as follows. Shestam goy, which means you're plain, unknown, non-Jew. Basically, you're human being who's not Jewish. Mishaker, lies. So the assumption is that people lie. When you find a person who only speaks the truth and would never say a lie, that is an exception. And there are obviously many such people. But the assumption is people lie. as the verse states, this is a quote from the book of Tehillim, Psalms 144, verse 8. Asher PM diber shav, that their mouths spoke falsely. V'lachein, and therefore, chashashu leidusam. So the rabbis are concerned and they're worried about their testimony. Ulefichach, and therefore, im yesh lismech al kach sheina meshakrim. If you have reason to believe and to rely on the fact that they're not going to lie in a particular situation, going, for example, shtarois shelerkois hagoyim, a document of a legal document within the court case, within the court system, the legal system of the non-Jews. In other words, if on the document it says that when you sign your name here, you are declaring and you are testifying, anything of that nature, any type of language like that, and it is punishable by, and whatever they say. Mm-hmm. So you know that when you sign that document as a testimony, okay, so then we don't assume that the person would endanger himself in doing that. So when you see a legal signature on such a thing, on a legal document, or another case would be that the non-Jew doesn't mean to testify, or he doesn't mean to establish a fact, but it's a term used in Jewish law, and it's actually a separate section in the Encyclopedia Talmudit called Mesiach Lefi Tumoy, which means telling over something without the intention of testifying or of establishing a fact. For example, he's telling a story, and within the story he happens to mention a certain something which, for legal purposes or for religious purposes, for the Jew, that's very significant. And the guy just happened to say it, and you can tell clearly that he didn't mean to establish anything. But based on his story, we now can accept that because he didn't mean to tell it to us as a testimony for something. An example, try to think of a practical one for nowadays. If, let's say, as we'll discuss, let's say it comes to a matter of kosher. So if there's a non-Jew who works in a company or who owns a company, and I want to know if the ingredients or if something to do with the food, the preparation or whatever, is it fit for Jewish consumption? Is it kosher? So if I call him and I say, are all the ingredients kosher? Or can you please list for me the ingredients? He may not be believed. I may not be allowed to rely on his testimony that he's giving me, even though it's not in a court. Because we said, Stam Goy lies. However, if in a different setting he happens to discuss all the ingredients, either for people that are allergic to different things, so they're going to supply the information, and you can trust them that they're going to say the truth, or they're just telling a story because, let's say, it's a scientific conference, or you have a bunch of chemists that are coming to learn, and therefore they're telling them all the ingredients because they want to demonstrate something. It happens to be that one of those chemists is a Jew that keeps kosher, and he's very interested in hearing exactly all of the ingredients. So in that case, we can believe the guy, because his intention is not to establish the standard or the kashrus of the food. He happens to be telling us a story, or he's telling us facts for what he thinks is a different reason. So that would be called Mesiach Lefi Tumoy. that he's just telling it to us, and we have to be certain, obviously, that it's Misiach Lefitumai. In those cases, they do some kshera. So indeed, according to this opinion, their testimony is acceptable. Because biblically, as we said, their testimony is acceptable. And the rabbi said it's not because they lie. Well, if it's a situation where you have no reason to think that they're lying, like these two examples that we just gave, either because it's a legal document that they would not lie about, or it's meisiach lefitumai, it's discussing something without even realizing that he's giving us this information which is imperative or necessary or important for us. All right, that's the first opinion. The Yeshoimrim, and some say, this is opinion number 2 of the 3. Some say, She'agoyim psulim leidus min haTorah. Okay, they disagree with the first opinion, and they say that indeed the non-Jews, the goyim, are disqualified as witnesses biblically. Now, why is that? Im mipnei shenemar ba'edim. One alternative is either because the verse which speaks about witnesses, where we quoted before, 2 verses later though, Devarim, chapter 19, verse 19, it says, Vasisim loy kashazomam lases la'achiv. There, the verse is speaking about a very specific type of disqualification or a false witness, where someone or a pair of witnesses came to testify, and they testified whatever they came to testify, whatever the case may be, and then 2 other witnesses, kosher witnesses, they came and they disqualified the first group by stating that at the time that you allegedly were wherever you say you were and you saw whatever you say you saw, well, you were with us elsewhere at that very time. On that very day, and that very time, you were with us. So it can't be that they couldn't have seen in person what they claimed to have seen. And what we do is, in that case, the Torah says that we accept the latter witnesses, and we disqualify the testimony of the first witnesses, and we do unto them, this is the punishment, the penalty is that the first set of witnesses, you do unto them what they tried to do to their fellow, whatever they were coming to testify. So if they came to testify that so-and-so committed such and such a sin, and the penalty for that would be 39 lashes, they would get the flogging, you do it to them. And if they came to testify that so-and-so did such a sin, and it would be a capital offense, and had we accepted their testimony, we would have actually put to death the person they came to testify against, then we'd put them to death, and so on. So, the Torah says, Kasher Zomam, as he had plotted, la'asa is to do, le'achiv, to his brother. Michlal, so from this we can deduce, she'achiv kamoyu, that when we're speaking about the witness that tried to do something to a fellow, it's his brother who's got to be like him. Namely, ma'achiv ben bris, afo'ed ben bris. Just as his brother is a member of the covenant, i.e. Jewish, so to the witness needs to be a ben bris, a member of the Jewish faith. V'kal v'choymer l'goy min ha'eved, im avodim shem b'miktas mitzvahs psulim ha'goy m'kol shekein. And they have a very strong logical proof to that. And they say that, how do we know that a goy is disqualified biblically? It's a certain line of logic called kal v'choymer, meaning if an eved, a slave, eved knani, is disqualified from being a witness. And it says in many places that in general, avadim, slaves, are to be assumed as liars. They are not to be trusted. And until you know otherwise, and until you know that this person, this Eved, is an exception, the assumption is we do not give them any benefit of the doubt, but to the contrary. So avadim are considered liars. Now, an Eved is actually not a regular guy. He's property of a Jew, and he's obligated to keep many or some mitzvahs. Basically, all the mitzvahs that a Jewish woman needs to keep, he has to keep. He's exempt from the mitzvahs that a Jewish woman is exempt from. So he's got to keep much more than the 7 that Bnei Noach have to keep. And yet, an Eved who is, I don't want to say partially Jewish, but who is obligated in doing many of the Jewish commandments, he's disqualified. How much more so the guy? That's the line of logic. Or alternatively, the other way that we can learn that the guy is biblically disqualified from being a